welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to give you a couple of top tips on how you can improve your strength and conditioning training. So why is strength and conditioning important? Well, in this day and age we often get a lot of muscle imbalances from the way that we stand, for example the way that we look at our mobile phones and tablets, and also the way that we sit at our desks, hunching over our computer screens, or driving our cars, or sitting on our sofas. So this creates no end of muscle imbalances. So for example, between our chest and upper back muscles, our back muscles and our abdominal muscles, and also our hip flexors and glutes. So if we don't rectify these, then we'll get these muscle imbalances and it can potentially cause injuries further down the line. However, when we are doing strength and conditioning, there are a few things that we need to look out for, and a common mistake that I often see people making is the fact that they don't work their muscles through a good enough range of motion. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you were to do a hammer curl or bicep curl, you wouldn't just hold the dumbbell and just move it through this range of motion just here, would you? Because although the muscle would get very, very strong within this very limited range in which you'll be moving the muscle, throughout its full range, it's actually going to be quite weak. So the bits in this movement where you don't usually exercise the muscle are going to be quite weak, and you're not going to be able to lift very much, and your muscle's going to fatigue quite easily. Okay, so this is a common theme across lots of exercises that I see people do. They exercise the muscles, but only within the very limited sort of happy zone. Runners are particularly guilty of this a lot of the time. So for example, if you only do longer, steady endurance runs and you never increase your pace, you never run fast, then you use the muscles only within a very limited range. So for example, let's take the triple flexion movement, which is a really important part of the recovery phase of the running gait cycle. So if we're referencing my left leg here, essentially the recovery phase is anything from where the foot is not in contact with the ground. So essentially, as soon as you toe off, you're bringing the leg round, and then it's all the way up until basically you foot strike again on this leg. Part of that movement is the triple flexion, whereby you're flexing your hip and you're also bending the knee by using the hamstrings. But if you're not running very fast, then you're not really going to be using those muscles very much. So instead of doing this, you're going to be doing more like this and just bringing it through. So again, going back to the bicep curl, it's like just doing that movement instead of that movement. Okay, so the hamstring is going to be probably quite overworked, but only within a very limited range. You're also likely not going to be using the glutes as well, so we want this nice triple extension behind us. But again, if you're not running very fast, you're probably just going to have that bend of the knee and just flick up using the hamstrings instead. But there's a couple of exercises that I want to go through just to give you some common examples of where people slip up in terms of their strength and conditioning. So the first one that I want to cover is the plank. Now this is an exercise that I give to lots of people to help develop their core muscles and obviously alleviate that imbalance that they might have there. Now, because it's an isometric exercise, meaning that we're just holding it and we're not actually moving the muscle through a range of motion while we're exercising, you would think that actually working it through a good range wouldn't be that much of a problem. But still, people do find a way to cheat, because essentially they often turn a plank, which should look like this, into more like a downward dog, like in yoga. Okay, so obviously it's a completely different thing. They have their bum right up in the air. But the problem is you're shortening through the abdominal muscles, and you're also shortening through the hip flexor muscles as we do this. So again, although it's an isometric hold, we're not exercising the muscles through their length and range. So it's obviously going to be a lot harder, therefore, to put those muscles more into a lengthened position and have a straight line from our shoulders all the way down to our feet. That's why it's harder when you hold it like this. So essentially these muscles are going to be lengthened in this position. Obviously we don't also want to go to the other extreme, whereby we're really lengthening our abs, okay, and then therefore we're dropping our hips too much and having that curve in the back, because that will potentially injure your back, particularly of course if you've not got very good sort of abdominal strength as well. So essentially we want it in this sort of nice sort of pelvic neutral position. So that's the first exercise. Also, an upper body exercise that people often do is the press up, okay? So obviously this comes in a wide variety of different adaptations that you can do. I'm just going to demonstrate the wide press up with the hands quite wide, but obviously you can do it narrow or whatever. So the easier one is the wide press up. And so essentially we're going to go into this position again. It's almost like our plank position, okay? And when we lower, we want to go all the way down to the point where our forehead's pretty much on the floor, okay? So that's going to give us the best range of motion that we can possibly have through our pectorals, our chest muscles. But again, the problem is people don't go down far enough, so they're not exercising these muscles through a full range. So with the problem with press ups is that they often want to avoid doing the press up with their knees down like this, because they think it makes them look weak as they do it like that, okay? So they try and do the full press up almost in that plank position. But the problem is, as a result, because they're not strong enough, they end up only going down halfway like this. But again, you're not exercising through a full range. So if you are going to be doing this this full press up, make sure you go down all the way like so. And a rule I often have is that it's better to do an easier exercise well than try and do a harder exercise and do it poorly, because to be honest, I think you're more likely to look like a bit of an arse if you do the harder exercise but not do it well. Okay, final exercise I want to do is the squats. So again, there's different heights that you can do with the squats, okay? So you can go down into your half squat like so, but again, is that going to exercise through a good range of motion? Probably not. You're not going to be using their glutes in their full capacity. So the best thing to do, if you can, is to vary your training and include some deeper squats as well, where you're going pretty much as far down as you can, okay? Obviously while maintaining your form, so you don't want your knees to collapse in as you go down, okay? And you will feel like you're working your glutes a lot more if you do it like this rather than like this. Same goes for a plyometric squat, so you can do a half squat jump like this, where you're barely going down at all, or you can start from a much deeper position and then jump up like so. Okay, so you can obviously see the difference there. You're obviously going to be using your glutes through a much greater range of motion. So I hope those 3 examples have helped and they've given you a good idea of the point that I'm trying to make. So I'll hopefully see you again soon.